In today's video, I'm going to show you how we took this broken down carport and turned it into this. Stick around to see how we made this happen. My name is Sarah, and I like to take things that are ugly and beat up or pulled out of the trash and make them beautiful again. Welcome to my channel. This carport covered with a tarp has served us pretty well for the 5 years we've lived here. I'm actually surprised it's held up this well considering it's just a tarp. But it has come to the point where, one, it's just collecting junk because the roofing, the tarp has gotten so many holes in it, it leaks at random places. So I can't put anything here I expect to really stay dry. Certain pockets are starting to sag and collect a lot of water, which we were able to push up with a broom, but now it's to the point where I was cutting the tarp to let the water out because there was so much. So it is time to do something with this eyesore and not just make this look better, but be functional. And I have a pretty good sized garden, so I have produce that I need to dry out, like onions and garlic, that I need a shaded place where they won't get wet. So it is time to tackle this carport and make this a usable space. We started off with measuring the dimensions of our carport. It ran 22 feet long along the garage, and then it came out just under 12 foot away from the garage. So we knew a 12-foot panel would be the right length, and then each panel is just over 2 feet wide, so we decided to buy 12 2-foot panels. We went to Lowe's, Home Depot, and Menards to figure out who had what we needed, and hands down, Menards was the best. They had instructions on how to install their materials. They had all the screws, the different supports, plastic pieces that you need underneath the polycarbonate. They had all the polycarbonate we wanted. And we got the rebates. So I've never shopped Menards, but shameless plug for them in this video. Not supported by them whatsoever. But they were the most helpful in getting this project done for us who knew nothing. It took a little bit of work to get this tarp off, which surprised me a little, but I mean, it's a huge tarp, so it was a bit of a heft to get this thing detached from the frame and rolled up and pulled off. But man, just taking that tarp off made this place look so much nicer. I did need to deal with some carpenter bees. There were many holes in the frame structure already, which I looked up a bunch of different things. I'm not a fan of chemicals. Talking to someone who's already dealt with this stuff, they said pretty much the chemicals is all they found to work. But in my stubbornness, I refused to buy them, and I read where the scent of lemons and citrus and orange they don't like, so I squeezed it all over my wood and then proceeded to plug the holes first with foil and then cover with wood putty. And this actually kept them away for maybe a month or two, but I just walked out there recently and they opened up one of the plugged holes, one that I actually saw them using, and they're back active and I need to take care of that again. But at least so far, I have no chemicals in that area. We also needed to kind of clear the area out in order to get ready to put the polycarbonate up. So I kind of cleared the brush down low and I cut branches up high that were kind of going to block the way of us accessing the roof. And then we also needed to take the gutter off of the side of the garage, and we were not planning on putting it back up just because the water can drain from the roof onto the polycarbonate and then out into the woods, and it should be fine. After we got the gutter down, the fascia we realized was really dirty, so we gave that a good scrubbing. And at this point, it's the end of the day, it's getting dark out, so we needed to stop. But the next step was putting the framing up top to get this ready for the roofing. We were a little concerned with the wobbliness of this current structure that we were working with, but we were hoping at this point that when we add the framing up top, that it would bring the whole thing together and be more solid. By saying framing, that might be a little confusing because we obviously have the structure there, but we don't have cross beams going the width along parallel with the garage in certain intervals going down the top of the framing to be able to attach our polycarbonate panels. We don't want to just attach them at the far end and nowhere else. So we need to get 2x4s laying flat. We decided to do 4, one at the fascia near the garage, and we would attach the polycarbonate there, and then 2 middle intervals, which we just spaced out evenly for the length that we had, and then another 22-foot board going along the far edge. A few of these trusses were sagging, so as we were putting these cross beams up, we had to compensate for the sag, and we had 2 ideas. One was, well, maybe when we screw the cross beams on, it will pull the sagging board up so that it'll be flat with everything else. But we were concerned that would not work. So we cut these smaller slip of boards to go in between the trusses and the cross beams so that the trusses could stay sagging, but our cross beams would be nice and flat so that as we laid the polycarbonate, we wouldn't have any dips and sags. We wanted it to be nice and straight going from the garage away into the woods. So because we had never done this before, part of figuring out how to do it was kind of like looking at things and how it would look. So we put the one clear panel up. Okay, is it going to be long enough? Good. Yes. How's it going to work? Is this enough of a slant now that we got those 4 cross beams up? Is the water really going to run off? And sure, yeah, it ran off okay. So once we were satisfied, like, okay, we're going in the right direction. Now we can keep building the rest of this framework on top. We did, because I kind of just guesstimated on how many panels we wanted. I did lay them all out in the grass and then measure how long they were so I could start thinking about how much overlap we needed and things like that. So a lot of this was one step at a time. How does this look? Yep, we're going in the right direction. Keep going. Now that we have the 4 cross beams on, we need to fill the gaps on the ends so that we have a solid surface for tacking down the polycarbonate panels on the ends. So we need to measure every gap and cut a 2x4 and then attach it up there in order that we have a nice I see it as like a solid square, or almost kind of like a frame for a mattress on a bed frame. You need certain slats within certain distances to hold everything up. So once we have all those attached, then the exciting part, we're ready to put this roof on. So along the outside edge, there's this plastic support piece that goes up underneath the very far edge ridge to support the polycarbonate and then screw in and just hold the thing in place. And then along the cross beams in the center, there's this ridged support plastic piece that goes underneath every single polycarbonate panel on every single cross beam. This particular polycarbonate had special flashing that went with it. And we debated on how to install this, and I'm going to show you how we did it wrong the first time and had to come back and uninstall it and reinstall it. But we put a bead of this specific silicone caulk that's for polycarbonate. You have to be very careful in buying this stuff. You have to make sure it's compatible. We caulked the side, and then we shoved it up underneath kind of the edge of the fascia drip edge and then screwed it in place. We thought this was how you're supposed to do it, and it did not work. It did not hold the water out, and we had water dripping down along where the garage and the polycarbonate meet. So we had to take all this out and redo it. But we didn't realize this till we got all the panels up and all the flashing on. So first we have to finish installing all these panels, which I will fast forward through. But I just wanted to point out, we're in coats and hats now. This was filmed in the spring, where one day we're in t-shirts and shorts and the next it's like winter, but just kind of makes the project more fun. Our daughter likes to come along and help from time to time as well. So we'll just fast forward through here and voila, all the panels are attached and up and the roof is done, but not. We actually had to get a little creative in doing the final support plastic pieces underneath the polycarbonate because the structure wasn't actually square, like a perfect square. It was kind of angled. And so we just kind of, cut some pieces down and made sure it kind of lined up and matched up, and it was fine. We were able to attach it and screw it down. It's not perfectly straight, but you can't tell unless somebody points it out to you. We were also at the end of our screw pile, and we had to count out and make sure we spaced everything just right so we didn't have to go back to the store and buy more screws. Ever been there? We were so excited to get these final panels up, put the last of the flashing on, and my husband even added an extra bead of caulk along the top just to keep it watertight. And we thought we were done. This took multiple evenings and Saturdays to do. So to solve our leaking problem, what we had to do was remove that fancy plastic flashing. We put a bead of caulk where the polycarbonate meets the fascia to seal that area up. And then we laid that fancy flashing down flat, as we should have originally. We put a bead of caulk about an inch up from the edge to help seal it where that top flashing meets the polycarbonate. And we nailed it to the fascia with just aluminum roofing nails. And then I needed a big old roll of regular flashing, which we had this stainless steel. You could also have used aluminum. Oh! Wipe out. But this was a little too wide for our space, so we had to actually very meticulously measure a small amount off and then cut that down, because it needed to shove up underneath the drip edge and then be just snug to hit where that new flashing, the polycarbonate flashing that we put on, where it hit and made this nice edge between that stainless steel flashing and the polycarbonate, so that it was nice and tight and the water would run away from the flashing, away from the roof, the garage roof edge, and down out into the woods. So the next time it rained, everything stayed nice and dry and tight, and it worked perfectly. Now that we know that this project is truly complete because the water is staying out, let's go back and look at what we started with a carport that looked terrible, was leaking, and was a hot mess, and see what we've turned this into. I do want to say thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this and learned some stuff along the way. Enjoy this final reveal, and I will catch you in future videos.